undisputed, undefeated, welterweight champion of the world, Terence Crawford.
Boxing stance. Crawford is a switch hitter, which means he can fight in both orthodox and southpaw stances. You'll notice his foot positioning is pretty wide, allowing him to control the ring as his footwork is one of his best assets. At times, you'll see him use a Philly shell or L-guard defense in defensive situations, but most of the time, he maintains a wider, more forward stance. He likes to fight in a loose and relaxed boxing stance, which is different from most fighters. He likes to position his elbows more separate and not as close to his body. This allows him to establish a dominant stance, which makes it easier for him to measure distance, parry, and deflect his opponent's attacks. You'll notice this when he fights in the southpaw stance, where he extends his lead hand to occupy more space to lead the battle in the ring. Israil Madrimov fights out of the orthodox stance, but he's a switch hitter, so he's willing to fight out of the southpaw stance as well. He likes to fight with a low guard with his lead hand out of the picture. He gives up the jab lane, and he doesn't like to use feints and probing to set up his offense. He likes to start his with the stab jab. When he's not using a low guard, he prefers using a loose traditional guard from an open stance. Watch how he defends the jab with the lead hand parry, even though most of the time he's not quick enough to redirect the punch, so he gets hit anyway. Madrimov can be forced into a non-active high guard off of the reaction to jab feints, which can cause problems for Madrimov since the high guard has holes in the middle and around the sides, and the shields can be occupied and controlled to create more efficient offense opportunities. Madrimov will have issues in all three guards, since he likes to use them against southpaws, and Terence Crawford lead hand will be a serious problem for Madrimov. Terence is very effective against high guards, especially against Madrimov. Terence loves to use pins, posts, and probes to occupy gloves. Also, forearm frames to exploit and blast the holes in the high guard. Crawford incorporates subtle movements and feints with his lead hand, which helps him set up his attacks and keep his opponents guessing. Crawford's jab might not receive much attention, but it should, since it's one of his deadly weapons. From the southpaw stance, he's using a jab as his rangefinder. He also likes to parry his opponent's attacks with his lead hand, then counter with his own jab or with a looping jab over the top. Since Madrimov likes to avoid the lead hand battle, Crawford can expose this by probing with his lead hand. Crawford can jab body head and using probes and feints to start his offense. He also likes to use different control methods. By Crawford probing with his lead hand, he'll cause punch traffic, which will cause his opponents to try and throw his backhand instead of fighting through the lane with the lead hand. This will make things much easier for Bud to time backhands and set up counters.
Still taking on water, so just losing that last little bit. Looking for the left-handed.
Madrimov heavily favors the use of angle changes. He can take both strong side and weak side, but he usually looks for the weak side angle in the open stance to disengage or continue his offense. A key benefit of the angle changes that you're able to gain a dominant position on your opponent and set your feet while they're still trying to match a new position. However, Madrimov's footwork hurts him at times because he likes to extend the necessary amounts to take that angle sometimes, lengthening it up to a 4-step process before he's back in stance. Madrimov also likes to cross-step while changing angles, which will leave his lower chin wide open for Terence Crawford to annihilate or obliterate. Or you can catch him continually fall into a rhythm bounce right after taking the angle. These two flaws compromise his balance, and they all lead to his opponent being able to match his angle before he can establish a better position. Furthermore, along with the footwork issues that's already been noted, the jab battle and feints are a real problem for Madrimov angles. The feints will throw off his timing on the slip that he uses to change angles. The jab battle that he doesn't seem to participate in very much might see him slipping a probe that Crawford isn't committing to, allowing Crawford to easily reposition his feet to match the angle before Madrimov gets there without the Lomacek-esque pre-slips. Feinting that lead leg slip for the angle change, that slip simply acts as a tell that the angle change is coming. Crawford's ability to switch hit is the most talked about characteristic of his style. Not only is he comfortable fighting from both stances, but what truly stands out is how effortlessly he transitions between them even while throwing combinations. This not only confuses his opponents, but also provides Crawford with various openings and opportunities depending on the opponent he faces. For Crawford to execute the switch hitting style effectively, his footwork must be precise, which is often overlooked. Crawford possesses well-crafted footwork, allowing him to invade his opponent's offense by utilizing lateral movements. This unique style has become a hallmark of Crawford's career. Madrimov does possess a decent slip counter game, having a full arsenal of explosive counter punches that make him dangerous to overcommit against. He also has a step-back counter slip game in his tool bag, like using reverse shuffles to escape, then punishing his opponents. Crawford has to be careful when reaching and lunging. He can't be a lazy fighter against Madrimov. Madrimov favors the stab jab out of the open stance. It's a very risky move as it puts his head directly in line with Crawford's lead hand. Madrimov doesn't hand fake often, which will make it very difficult for him to start his offense or his attacking against Crawford. Terence is a master at countering his opponents. Although he can pressure his opponents, his countering punching ability is out of this world. Crawford's footwork and distance control allows him to capitalize on counter opportunities when his opponents fall short of their attack. He'll quickly react with counters, often in the form of looping shots.
Emergency that I was talking about, that Sean Porter hoping that
There are the body punches. 28, there is!
Crawford possesses the ability to throw his attacks while his opponent is punching, particularly against lazy or less committed attacks. In such instances, he often counters with hooks or overhand punches.
Interested in engage right now. Now he gets nailed again. He drops him on his nose. And Kenny Baylor doesn't bother to count. He's knocked out.
In cases where his opponents refrain from attacking, Crawford often baits them with his signature 2-3 combination from the southpaw. Most opponents tend to cover up, allowing him to land powerful shots.
They can't let that happen.
except for, right? Combinations up top like that. He made the point before.
Crawford comes into this round having landed 100.
However, sometimes after the straight 2, his opponents attempt to counter, but Crawford, expecting this, throws the lead hook, timing a perfect counter himself. Now that we've broken down Terence Crawford's skills, Let's check out his weaknesses, if he has any. Crawford prefers to maintain a loose and relaxed open guard when he boxes. This approach helps him have a better reaction and control of the distance between him and his opponent. He relies on head movement, footwork, and parries to defend against his opponent's attacks. However, we can see that his open guard sometimes gets him in trouble, especially when facing opponents with fast straight punches, who know how to set their attacks up with feints. Crawford needs to remember that in boxing, even the best defensive fighters get hit occasionally. In the case of Crawford, he possesses a fascinating and undeniable tricky style that will prove difficult for Madrimov to figure out. All right, round 5, fight.